forum. Jeff, is there anything that staff would like to, or Joe, that staff would like to cover during open forum?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chair.
Nothing from me.
Anyone from the board have anything they'd like to offer up at open forum?
Nope.
No? Great. Go to the audience. Anybody in the audience have anything to cover during the open forum section of the meeting tonight? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to our first public hearing item. And the first item before us tonight is PB 2133, definitive subdivision plan and stormwater management permit for 22 Griffin Road, also known as Cloverleaf Fields.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. I did catch up on this. I missed the last meeting, and I did watch the previous meeting over the weekend. I saw there was quite a bit of discourse regarding placement of the driveway for the, I think it's Lot B, which would be an A&R lot that would be perhaps built out in the future. And there was also quite a bit of conversation regarding preserving sort of a historic or an older roadway and potentially using that as a meandering path, or perhaps not so meandering of a path for cutting through to Griffin Road from Old Lowell Road. So be interested to hear what the applicant has done since the last meeting. And with that, welcome to the applicant.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Douglas DeShane, representing the applicant. Here with me this evening, George and TJ Allen from Allen Construction, and seated to my right, Steve Dresser, our engineer on the project. What I'd like to do is, well, I'll give you the update. Steve has been working with Jeremy and Paul, working through the engineering comments, and it's my understanding that they've really made a lot of headway, and at this point there does not appear to be any showstoppers. I know we're waiting on a final report from Jeremy and Paul, but all indications are that we've gotten everything resolved there, so we're hopeful that that is the case. If you have any more specific questions, I know Steve can answer them, but that's pretty much the status of where we are with the engineering review. We think we're quite well along. I do want to address a specific question that was asked by Kate. Kate, we did take a look at those two trees that you were hopeful we could save. We did in fact call an arborist and looked into those tree wells that you may have seen. The trouble is that we're going to have a substantial cut there. It could be 4 to 6 feet, and it's yeah, I mean a fill, so that the wells themselves would be substantial, and it's highly unlikely that the trees are going to survive, and what we would end up with probably is in 4 or 5 years a dead tree scenario, and now it's in the middle of everything and could be difficult. But we did look, and it just seems it's difficult to do given the cut and fills that we're facing. However, I do have good news on some of the other questions. We did look, as you'll recall, we're working with the water department about a potential water easement to run a line from Old Lowell Road, but we had discussed the existing old road that is connects from Lowell Road to our project, or to the land, and my clients have agreed to grant the town an easement over that portion of the old road that is resident on our property. You'll recall there's a piece of it that jumps up to the Kennedys, and of course we can't do anything with that, but we can provide an easement to the town on the property as it where it crosses and runs on our property, which is most of its length. And additionally, my clients will agree to build a connection from sort of where that old road ends, to our new subdivision road, so that, and I think that was the specific request, that if we, rather than a second sidewalk, if we could grant that easement, but more so actually create it so it's a viable trail from our road to Lowell Road. So we are agreeable to do that. So
Great.
That was good. The other big topic of discussion, as you'll recall, was the concerns with respect to Griffin Road itself, and the fact that there's a lack of sidewalk on Griffin Road. And while I can't solve that problem entirely, Mr. Dresser has come up with a proposal whereby we could produce or create that meandering sidewalk we all talked about, at least along the frontage of the property. And I'll let Steve give you a little more detail on how that can be accomplished. You'll recall, we've got some grades to deal with, you've got ADA considerations, and, you know, there's some stones there, remnants of a stone wall, I think we characterize it as. There's some trees, but I think Steve has come up with a solution whereby we can get a safer walk across the front of the project, to the extent that that'll help with general safety. And again, I'll let Steve give some details on that. I just want to say one more thing before I pass it over, and is that the other thing we achieved that we had discussed at the last meeting is removing the driveway for Lot C and making it come into the subdivision road as opposed to a separate curb cut on Griffin. Actually, I think I saw that plan click by. So there it is. So you can see that we reconfigured the driveway for Lot C so that it now runs over to the subdivision road. We had to reconfigure the driveway on the, you know, the house on the first lot, but I think I think it works, right? I mean, I think we're comfortable with it, that it will work.
You were gonna consult with the building commissioner if a special permit was required?
There was a similar circumstance, actually, that council did opine on recently. We believe a special permit would be required for that
From whom?
from this board.
Okay. So that would just be part of our decision?
Actually, you do not yet have that application before you. What I had assumed was the intent is that you would have a condition of approval that would say they must apply for a special permit for a common driveway within a certain time period, and if they could not secure it, or if this board would not grant it, anything's possible, then they could do their by right driveway through their own frontage.
So that doesn't count as, or other action?
Well, I'm
related to-
we don't have to debate that
Yeah.
tonight, but I think I would
Okay.
like to touch base with Jeff and staff and town council to see if the language that we include in our application provided sufficient notice to the public that this board could in fact be granting other permits. And if that's the case, I can get an application in a very short order. It's the notice that's
Yeah.
the issue, right? I have 30 days and all that.
I'll let you work it out.
Either way, we will, obviously, we will apply for that permit if, in fact, the board wants us to move forward with the driveway here. So I do think we tried and we're very successful in addressing a lot of the board's comments. I'll remind everyone that unlike most of the subdivisions we've done, this is not an open space subdivision, so we don't you have the same kind of requirements with that stuff, but my clients have been very cooperative and want to provide the trails and the sidewalks and the other things that we've talked about. So Steve, maybe you want to just give them a quick understanding of how you think we could do that the walkway along Griffin Road.
Yeah, we went out and we located some trees down there, so I'm assuming one of the bigger issues would be the removal of significant trees there. It's not something that I don't believe anybody wants to do. So we can I don't know if you can put a view up that has the sidewalk on it. All right there, so we can do kind of a turn back right below that, down at the bottom, kind of near the silt fence line. That would be the connection, the downhill connection to Griffin Road. There would be a detectable warning strip there as per ADA, a 5-foot landing, and then turn. It's actually a 4-foot way that you would need. There will be a 5-foot, the ADA requirement is it can be 4 feet wide, but you need a 5-foot wide area every 200 feet for passage. Towns do typically adopt a 5-foot wide sidewalk just to kind of avoid that, but it is an ADA The ADA only requires 4 feet with a 5-foot passage. There is a slope exemption if you keep it within existing right-of-way. That was pointed out to me by the town engineering department. There are some grade issues down at the beginning of that. I know we had talked about the possibility of coming onto Lot C, but if you can see the kind of the steeper grades there at the bottom on the lot. That's where the septic system's going. There's relatively high groundwater along a slope. So we do have to bring up some grades on the bottom part of that lot, which is going to make, between that and the actual physical location of the septic system and the grading requirements of Title V, we just can't physically put that on our lot and still meet ADA. With that being said, I'm not sure, the need for that. We're still able to keep a green strip. And it really does, I went out there today to see, it really does create a safe passage in really the area of Griffin Road, which is not safe. It gets you over the top of that hill. And even though there's not sidewalks after that, there's pretty good sight distance all the way to the first parking lot at the field. So it is going to be a pretty significant safety, help to the safety out there. Once you get up, keeping in mind where that road is, not where the existing driveway is, but we're bringing it up in front of the house. So you do get over that hump, so it is a pretty good help. And there's a stone wall there that's going to have to be taken out, but it's not like one of the old historic farming walls that we all know in New England. It really looks like, 20 years ago, somebody decided to line up some rocks because it would look good. So that portion of that wall would have to be removed. But I think it meets the goal of what most of the neighborhood said, which was to provide a safe access for pedestrian through that really kind of nasty hump section there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
That's great.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think having watched 2 weeks ago proceedings over the weekend, it seems like you've really attempted to work on every piece of resident feedback. So I thank you for that. Okay, is that everything? Is there anything else from?
I would certainly, any more questions, we're happy to answer them and provide any information you need, but I think the general design of the subdivision hasn't been in flux for a little while, and again, just trying to wrap up things with the engineers, which we think we've done. So
Right.
mostly we've just spent the time working on the trail and the sidewalk issues and the driveway stuff.
Great. Okay. Well, if that's everything from the applicant, then I'll go to the board. Darren, any initial feedback?
Did Jeff have anything?
Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, given that engineering department could not be here tonight, I did have a direct conversation with them, with our town planner, and they did confirm that while they haven't completed their re-review of the materials, that the applicant was very cooperative. They foresee no deal breakers. They've gotten through the lion's share of the work, and they don't have any discomfort, if the board were to move forward. They think it's not an if, they just have to resolve a few minor technical things.
Okay.
Need a little more time, that's all.
Okay, great.
Cool.
All right, with that, Darren?
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you to the applicant. As Dylan mentioned, I think, appreciate you addressing a lot of the concerns that, the local neighbors had in the area, so that's great. Good to see all those being addressed. Be curious to see, engineering's final comments, but everything sounds great to me. I have one question, it's kind of a nitpicky, I guess. So that strip between the walkway and the road, which is great, I much appreciate that walkway. Who maintains that? Is it Lot C, the owner of Lot C, that would maintain that strip?
It's in the town right away, right?
What's that?
It's in the town right
It
away.
is in the town right of way.
Right, so
I
got-
mean, technically it's public property. I mean, if that's my house, I'm mowing it.
So I'm just curious to see, whatever goes in there could be kind of low maintenance or something, but whatever.
Yeah, I think it would just be grass and.
Yeah, good. Great, otherwise, I think, I appreciate it again, thanks for addressing those issues.
Great. Kate?
Hi, thank you. I do appreciate the work you did it took me a little while to find the historic road easement on, on the plans. I found it like an hour ago, so I do appreciate that. I was just curious, you have it only 4 feet wide in an 8-foot right-of-way. I didn't know if there was any value for bicyclists or anything to have it a little larger, a little wider or not, but I do appreciate it being there. And I did drive down Griffin Road since we were unable to do that on our site walk because of the rain. I did drive down and I did notice on the lower left, the slope there, I did see what you mean because it goes down steeply to the wetlands.
Right.
And I appreciate why you're ending it where you're ending it instead of at the end of the property. I did have some comments on, let's see, you mentioned a Cape Cod berm on Lot 2? What was that?
Yeah, it's just so that the stormwater is directed back into the road and into the catch basin system and in turn into the infiltration system, as opposed to just running overland and into the wetlands without being treated. So any impervious area other than roofs needs to be treated before it can drain into the wetland.
Okay, and you mentioned in your sediment forebay that it's only 1 to 1.5 feet above something, and what would happen if you find that it's not more than 2 feet above the seasonal high water table? Would that mean they'd have to come back to us, or you'd have to do a modification to the plan?
Well, we've already done test holes out there and determined where the groundwater is for the infiltration basin. I think in the middle, we're not concerned about it, and that was a conversation we had with the engineering department, because it's really just like a 1-foot cut there, because that cul-de-sac is coming up so much in order to make the slope requirement down the road that there's not really a cut there. And we do have soil testing at similar elevations.
Yeah, you
So we're not
just
too
mentioned
worried
that
about it.
you could do something later on, so.
Yeah,
I just-
that was what was discussed at my meeting with the town engineer.
Okay, and you mentioned the issue with roof dry wells because of having to be 100 feet or more from septic systems. And I know on other projects, we've been able to put in dry wells, so can it
I
be
can't-
some
I
of
can't-
these houses?
I can't speak for other projects, but we were specifically, in a letter to the planning board
Yeah.
from the Board of Health, told,
Yeah.
pointed out that we could not put,
Is this for every lot or just some of the lots?
none of the lots would work just because of the location of the septic systems and the requirements of the Conservation Commission.
Okay. And here's something that I'm just winking at, and also because Emily Teller's here. Thank you. I noticed you made all the trees oaks based on her recommendation. But I also noticed you're going to have to cut down a hickory, so we know hickories work there as well. So maybe you and the tree warden, when you're deciding what trees, you can also think of hickories. Let's see. I just had some comments on the plans. There's an existing retaining wall near the existing house number 22. It's parallel to the road. Oh, yeah. And are you, nope, go to the right of where you go up there. Is that going to be removed?
Yeah, the road's going right through that.
Okay, because it shows up on all the plans, so you need to remove it.
Is it on the, okay.
Yep, so you need to remove it from all the other plans. On the landscape plan, not only do you have that, but you also include the trees that are going to be removed, so it's really hard to tell which trees are going to be removed and which are going to be planted, so you might as well, because the trees were going to already be removed when you plant, you might as well get rid of them, because I can't think of anything in our regulations that say they have to be shown on that plan. just to make it
They
easier
have to be shown on a plan,
Yeah,
but I can.
they're shown
I
on
can
the
work that out.
existing, so
Yeah, true.
if you take them off the landscape one, it'll be a lot easier to read. On your roadway plan, you did include the average cut for the roadway, or whatever it's called, but I'm just wondering if you should also show a cross-section cut for the 75 feet at the beginning, where you're gonna have vertical instead of sloping curved granite, because there's nothing on the plans that indicates there's gonna be vertical at the entrance. So-
Yes, it should be specified in some way. That's correct. I do not think now that you say that. But just to be clear, it's not 75 feet at the entrance. It's the radii.
Okay,
So it's the area, it's on the curve. Once it starts going straight, we're going
Okay.
to transition to
but
slope
there needs
granite.
to be something on the
Yes.
plan, so
That's a good
when they
catch.
build it, they know.
That's a good catch.
And then there was the comment in somebody's letter about who's going to maintain, I guess, all the catch basins or the stormwater components or whatever. So I defer that discussion until everybody else has given their comments.
Do you want,
That's all I have for now.
we're not talking?
Are we gonna have a homeowners association for that or no?
Do you want to have that discussion? or-
We may as well,
Yeah,
we're
might as well
here.
do it now, okay.
I guess a determination needs to be made. Should we have a homeowners association at the beginning? The intent is to go public, and if it were a public road, the responsibility for the catch basins would lay with the town of Westford. Certainly, things happen in between a full public acceptance and a remaining private, such as responsibility for infiltration basin may go on a homeowners association, but the town would plow and pick up trash and things like that, so.
Yeah, that was
I'm
my
not sure how that
concern,
discussion happens, though.
was that infiltration system on lot 3?
I would tell you that it's typical in subdivisions that a homeowners association is created for drainage responsibilities on the lots.
So typically, and it's not set in stone, but this Public Works usually asks, well, anything in the public way proper is the responsibility of the town. And if there's certain infrastructure that falls outside of that, even though they may be within easements, sometimes that burden is put on a homeowners association for that, which is outside the public
Okay,
way.
because other than that, there's no need, I just wanted to make sure if, like you said, that we all agree, and I guess it'll just be a homeowner's agreement for that, and possibly upkeep of the historic easement, trail easement. Well, I'm just thinking there, we have 2 easements, one for the trail and one for the,
Well, one is, obviously associated with drainage, which we need for the roadway, but I'll need to talk to my clients about that, Kate. I mean, it's one thing to build a trail, donate the easement,
yeah.
provide it to the town, but to now put a burden on the homeowners to maintain it for the town, I don't know how that usually works.
Since it's going to be gravel, I don't have a clue how much it'll actually need over time.
True.
We can keep up our volunteer trail stewards.
I would think that would be the more likely scenario, that you have a group that monitors trails.
Yeah, so that would have to be part of the easement.
Yeah, and I
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be an easement to the town of Westford, correct?
Okay, or parties who do work for them or whatever. Anyway, yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
so that's it. So it sounds as though you will create a homeowner's
Seems like the way
thing
to
for
go.
the infiltration. Got it. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Bob?
Yes, thank you. So first off, I just want to thank the applicant for routing the driveway from Lot C to Cloverleaf. That's a really good and nice improvement for this situation. My question about the homeowners association has just been answered. Now I understand, because I was confused by the language about the homeowners association if formed. Now I understand that. And thanks to Kate for clearing up the infiltration basin questions. The one comment I had at this point remaining is with respect to the suggested orders and conditions for general conditions of approval. I was going to suggest that we consider a condition that would require all of the construction vehicles as well as the private individual vehicles associated with construction be required to not park along the Griffin Road right-of-way unless there's a reason why there's some activity that involves a police detail. I think this is just, given the concerns about the safety along that stretch of road, I think we have to ensure that we don't have a large number of vehicles parking along that road during this construction. With that, that's all I have.
What's that?
We're okay.
Yeah,
That's a good
Yeah,
suggestion, Bob.
that's fine.
That makes
We're
sense.
fine with that. As you know, we've got a lot of area to pull off,
Yep.
so that makes sense.
just say one of the intents is that the existing driveway and that gravel area, we're going to keep that as kind of a staging area where vehicles can park and materials can be stored away from the wetlands, but not where the road is, where it's kind of down there. So that was something that was done in conjunction with the engineering, comments by the engineering department.
Gotcha.
So yes, we can adhere to that requirement.
Great. Great, thanks, Bob. Good suggestion. Any other comments, Bob?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, my colleagues have touched on a couple of things I was going to ask about, so that's great. I guess the only question I have, Jeff, is maybe more procedural and also, I guess, opinion of the board. So since we're going to be, I assume we're going to be asking staff to create a draft decision for us to consider in the next meeting. That's the logical next step here, right? Do we want to also have benefit of seeing the application for the common driveway? Or do we think that that's not needed necessarily by the time we're considering the draft decision?
So, if I may,
Please.
we will certainly reach out to council. I suspect they usually err on the side of caution for your benefit. However, this is a natural outcome of, this public hearing process. It's still the same number of lots. We can see if there is a way to do it above board, we're happy to incorporate it as part of this public hearing process. And if there's not, I fully anticipate, given that the board requested this, that they would probably look favorably upon any waiver request for application fees.
Yep.
And only deal with hard costs. And again, there could be a condition of approval if it can't be handled under this current public hearing, to simply have a condition that they must apply for.
Okay.
And again, I suspect a favorable outcome,
Yeah.
but, you never know.
Yep.
So
Certainly.
they cannot be deprived of their legal right to access. So the worst case scenario is that they have their very own driveway that benefits just their lot.
Yep.
So
Got it. Okay.
it's not what any of the board wants, so.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. All right, I'm good with that. Okay, I think we're done with board comments then, so we'll go to the audience.
I'd like to make a comment. My name is Bill Harmon. I live on Old Colony Drive. First of all, Doug Duchesne had kindly said that they are willing to support the historic road, which I think is very good, and said there's an exception for a place where it goes onto a private property. That belongs to June Kennedy, who is a well-known historian in town, and she's well aware of the historic road. And I talked with her about it between that last meeting and this meeting, and she's totally in favor of allowing that road to pass through her property. Okay. Oh, there it is.
Is she willing to grant an easement?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, that's great.
that's great. Good. And we'll, I think I had in our response letter, since we've done all the survey out there and located the trail, we'll gladly provide that easement as part of the approval.
Oh, good, thank you. The surface in that area, which is a wooded area, is fine, and I would say my recommendation is not to have it changed in any way. In other words, gravel or anything like that, I think would be inappropriate because it's already just perfect the way it is.
The only place, Bill, that it would be that first kind of L shape there, where when we're creating a new trail, because the old trail goes through existing Lot 5. So in the new portion of it, we need to meet ADA standards.
Yes.
And that hard pack gravel, it doesn't have to be paved, it can be a hard pack gravel. But that, other than that, yeah, the trail, I walked it this afternoon, it is in great condition. Need a little bit of cleaning up, 1 or 2 down trees and some brush that maybe gets in the way, but yeah, it's in really good shape.
Thank you very much for that. I have a comment about the off-road walkway, like a sidewalk. And I want to remind you that you received a letter from the Healthy Westford Committee. I signed the letter because I'm the chairman, but it's from the whole committee. It mentioned 3 requests. The historic road is one, and the second one, I'll put them in this order. The second one is this off-road sidewalk or off-road walkway. The way it's described in that letter from Healthy Westford is that it would be substantially farther away from the road than an ordinary sidewalk. Now, given the conditions there, my recommendation is to leave the stone wall the way it is and have that be the separation between the walking people and the cars. So basically, that's...
There's just not 4 feet behind those stones to the edge of the right-of-way that would be required. And once that goes onto private property, you lose some built-in exemptions from the ADA and the Architectural Barrier Board. Specifically the slope requirement.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so because we have a septic system, we're kind of changing the slope. We're making it flatter in one spot, but steeper in another. It's required, and we just can't make that 5%.
Okay, I hadn't realized that technicality. My point of view on this is that the property is 14 acres. The property that originally was for sale is 14 acres. And these lines here are hypothetical, the interior lines. And so I'll have to digest what you were just saying, Steve, but...
What lines are hypothetical?
Oh, the lot lines.
Well, they need to meet zoning. They're not hypothetical. They're
Well,
designed...
I'm making a simpler point, just that the whole property that was offered for sale is 14 acres.
Yeah.
And my preference, although I haven't fully digested what you just said there, is that that this off-road walkway does go onto land that is part of the 14 acres, rather than staying entirely on the land that already is owned by the town. Maybe I'll just leave it at that point.
We need to correct you. An A&R came before us earlier this year, and they did subdivide the 14 acres into 2 lots.
Oh, I see. Has that been executed? The A&R is actually
That
a
was executed.
separate lot? Oh, thank you. Didn't realize that.
This section is only 9.9 acres.
I mean, we've obviously been very accommodating, and if we
Yeah.
could accommodate that, we
Achieve
would.
that.
We just
When you
can't.
said only 9.9, which part are you talking about? The triangular?
No, the part under discussion
Okay.
for this application.
Okay. Let me see here. I want to switch to one final topic also, which is the third of the suggestions or requests from Healthy Westford Committee, and that is to preserve in some way the dry land that's kind of in the middle or off to the side. Actually, do you have the map that I sent in today, Joe, which you could display? It has blue. It stands out as having blue for the wetlands and green for a conservation restriction area. But I'll continue describing this. What we noticed in the committee is that there is a substantial area both to the east and west of this parcel. And the part to the east and west is wetland, wooded wetland, and it's very good for wildlife. There's a stretch of dry land in between, which is, the wetland is already taken care of by the wetland protection law, but the dry land is not. So we were recommending, or we, I mean, the committee was recommending, try to protect that in some way. And at your last meeting, I recommended or suggested anyway, a conservation restriction for that area. Actually, if you could shrink this up, this particular plot, we could use this one. I would prefer it if you could possibly display the other one that has the, well, anyway, continuing on.
I sent you another plan today with, there was an overlay on it. You don't have that one. That might even be easier to read if you had that. One of the ones I sent in response to this.
This is the area I'm talking about here. This house lot here has a huge area, about 3 acres. And currently there is hundreds of feet of backyard of dry land. But the recommendation that I'm summarizing here is to have some protection for this part of the dry land. And in fact, to be specific, I would like to recommend having a 60-foot backyard and then having, in other words, unrestricted, and then having a conservation area in this area right here. Now, when we talked about it at the last meeting, or after the last meeting, the developers were saying conservation restriction is totally out of the question. And then we talked about that after the meeting to understand why the objection. And the objection was because of the state of Massachusetts what's the term? Process process for creating a conservation restriction is very tedious, and I know that is true. So in response to that, I would like to recommend a simple deed restriction, which is the same level of complexity as an ordinary easement. And that would be, I think, that would be a very good thing here that would accomplish the benefits, or almost all of the benefits of my original proposal, which is a formal conservation restriction, but this would be just a simple deed restriction. So that's, I don't know, did I say too much for the complexity? Oh, by the way, I want to add one thing. In this particular subdivision, it was proposed without a preliminary plan review period. And I realize, and sort of apologizing for the fact that my comments are all of the nature of a preliminary plan review period. Because I think legally what's happening is that the preliminary review discussions are going on simultaneously, so they're going on now. And so that's why I think I might apologize for being talking about subjects like this when you were just saying earlier, Dylan, that maybe at the very next meeting the process will be all finished and approved.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm dealing with these sort of fundamental issues. Oh, there it is. I don't see the blue, but, oh, you can just barely see the wetland is blue.
Well, that's not the wetland, so that's the 50-foot no alteration zone, that 50-foot boundary. So the statement that only the wetlands are protected by the Wetlands Protection Act is true. However, Westford has a wetlands ordinance. So that 50-foot is a no alteration zone. So they would not be allowed to clear that.
You mean where I marked 50 feet here? Is that what you're describing now? Yes.
So nobody would ever be able to clear that. Here's kind of an overlay. I don't know if you can rotate that. And this might help a little bit. So.
Thanks, Joe. That's good.
Nor can any structures be built in that area
Well,
because it has to be 75.
Yeah, so up above that, there's a 100-foot boundary is above that, but there's a purple line above where it says 50-foot boundary, which would prohibit structures. You can see the limit of work is going to be the silt fence there. So we're already at that 60-foot driveway, backyard. And we were told by the Conservation Commission that there'll be some signage along that explaining, that you cannot go beyond this point without appearing in front of the Conservation Commission. So I guess what could happen, in theory, they could clear part of it, but you can see a significant part of in between those 50-foot boundary is the trail. you know, so that's already cleared. And why would, you know, I think it defies logic that somebody would take the time to go back in there to clear a 40-foot by 200-foot passage, you know, and go to the Conservation Commission, especially when that is actually their buffer to that public trail.
Right.
You know, so I think it's, I think the protection is there. I understand the point. It's a valley. It is a nice little wildlife corridor there that goes well to the east and well to the west, but I think the protection is there just by the Conservation Commission's order of conditions and logic telling you there's no reason to go back there and apply to the Conservation Commission just to cut a, you know, swath of trees down.
Yeah.
For stormwater, when you reviewed this with engineering, was this section of the property something that required no cut for engineering for
Well,
stormwater?
we're indicating the limit of work, so we're not in, so it is part of the subcatchment calculations that will remain in existing conditions. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways to not allow people to go back there and cut those trees. It would, I guess what you're getting at, you by cutting those trees, you would no longer meet the same stormwater criteria that you met prior to cutting those trees. You could say that would be in violation of this board's
So that would,
conditions.
I didn't pay attention to that, so is that on the plans, like no cut zone or something?
Well, yes, we show our limit of work, but the Conservation Commission is also requiring us to put boundary markers along the limit of work, stating, and it's gonna have to be in their deeds and, you know, in their sales stuff, that if anybody if the owner of lot five,
Yeah.
yeah, lot 5 wants to go beyond where those hay bales are shown,
Yeah.
you can see, with the exception of one little corner, everything in there is within the 100-foot buffer zone. Most of it is within the 75-foot no-build zone, and a good part of it is in the 50-foot no-touch. So there's a lot of restrictions there. I mean, you know, homeowners are going to know, there's going to be signs, you know, the lawn is going to end, there'll be boundaries and posts, and, I mean, quite frankly, Lot 5 just is going to have a trail easement through most of that property back there anyway, so it seems a little overkill to also ask them to restrict their property. In other words, the town can use it for a trail, but don't you use it. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
And note that the extension of that old road where it was required that we connect it to the subdivision road, it goes right along the edge of Lot 5. See it?
Yeah.
That's the section we're gonna build,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
so
Got it.
I think the protections are there. I
Yeah.
do.
All right. Hey, yeah, you have to get up to the microphone. Yes. Next, member of the audience.
Don Gallia, Mark Vincent Drive. My concern is with the walkway along Griffin Road.
Yep.
If the walkway is going to go where the stone wall is, it's going to be very close to the road.
Yep.
It's basically going to be a sidewalk. And what many of us in the neighborhood were asking for was, as Bill mentioned, the off-road walkway. And it seems to me that if you look at the map there, if you go to just to the right of where the stone wall is, there is enough room to put a walkway in partway up the hill. And after that, you could, actually, it looks to me like the slopes are around 5%, which is within the ADA restriction or requirement. And if it's a little bit above 5%, some meandering could get it below 5%. And also, as you get to the top, where the existing driveway is, it's very flat, and some regrading could happen actually at that location where it's a little bit steeper. So it seems to me that there is a workable solution by by working a little bit more with that assumption, because there are some concerns about the sidewalk. First of all, it's less safe than putting a walkway away from the road. Also, if you put a sidewalk there, the road's going to look wider, and traffic, and psychologically, people drive faster on a road that looks wider, and there's already major concerns in the neighborhood about speeding on Griffin Road. Also, it's going to be close enough to the road where it may need a curb. Paul Starrett would, you probably should talk to him about that, but he usually requires this curb for a sidewalk that's relatively close to the road. That may trigger the need for drainage improvements, which will be pretty expensive. So it seems to me that putting the walkway away from the road is the simpler solution. It's safer and I think a better solution. Also, even if it is slightly above the ADA slope requirement, a variance could be requested from the Architectural Access Board if it's shown to be impractical to meet that slope requirement. So it seems to me that there are some possible solutions.
The sloping issue, is that with regard to the actual grade of Griffin Road itself? So you're talking about, because I know.
Well, what happens with the ADA when I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, my question is, are you dealing with the slope of Griffin Road itself, right? And the I guess, the ADA requirements for what the slope would be, literally going up and down Griffin Road? Or by moving it into the lot, are you dealing with the sloping like in towards the proposed building here on Lot B?
You're dealing with a septic system in the front
Right.
that has grading requirements. And the biggest thing is once you take it off that right-of-way, you lose that exemption. So there'll be parts on Griffin Road that are slightly steeper than 5%,
Right.
but you're allowed to do that in the existing right-of-way. You're not allowed to do that. I'm not sure you can compel us to go look for a variance from the Architectural Barrier Board. I'm not sure if there's kind of a solution to them that they'd grant it, but.
Yeah.
I do want to remind the board, even with where we're proposing the sidewalks, there is still a 4-foot grass vegetated buffered strip between the roadway and the sidewalk.
It's not 4 feet for the entire length.
If you go there, the stone wall is very close to, it's within a couple of feet of the road. If it's going where the stone wall is, it's going to be within a couple feet of the road.
There is not a 4-foot strip the whole length. I'm not even sure. So you see that sidewalk is 4. You can see the relative. It's probably going to be between 2 and 4 for most of it.
Yep.
We can move, the stones can get moved. They're not, like I said, it's not a fancy wall. They're just one layer of rocks for the whole thing.
What if we put them in that strip?
You can put them in the strip. I don't, the curbing, I don't see curbing being required or it being part of a drainage. To me, if I see a sidewalk and I'm driving, that indicates to me that there's potential pedestrians. That doesn't tell me to speed up. That tells me to slow down.
Yep.
One of the solutions I had, and maybe just a sign before it might be appropriate.
Yep.
Just to put up some signage that, pedestrian ahead or whatever we do when there's a sidewalk ahead, watch for pedestrians. I don't think there's any signage on that road.
Yep.
Despite the amount of pedestrian traffic on it.
Yep.
So maybe, something along that, put a sign up to get people to slow down and make them aware, and hopefully it works.
Yep. Okay, Kate?
I was just going to say, if you scroll down, the question is, does the whole stone, it's a pile of stones, it's not well-defined boundaries on it, because it's stones from when they dug them up probably 200 years ago. They just piled them there to get rid of them. But is it possible, like at least on the lower end, to keep the stone wall? Because it looks as though you could potentially...
what's not on this view, unfortunately, are the trees.
Yeah, oh, okay.
So we're trying to save all the trees on that way as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, but there is room between, if it's not a straight line, you can sort of waver the walkway between the trees and the stone wall. There is room in many of those areas for 4 to 5 feet to, I mean, there's one section where there are very small saplings, which takes up a fair amount of area.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's concerned about the saplings.
Right,
yet.
exactly. But the larger trees, there's enough room between the stone wall and the
I honestly
trees.
just don't understand the benefit of this. It's almost like we're trying to get a win. You know, I think we did a lot here.
Yeah.
Well,
Is
We
there
can't,
any?
we can't agree to bring it onto the private property because we're gonna run into ADA issues,
Yep.
and we're not gonna go seek an exemption.
Yep.
It's a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of time.
Yep.
For something we're trying to do voluntarily here. It may not be the perfect solution.
Yep.
But it is certainly a reasonable solution to the problem, and it's being done voluntarily.
And I think it's an improvement from the current condition too, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, okay. And extending it to the lower end of the property there on the map. I understand that it's steeper there, but there's a very wide right-of-way there, and you could easily put it around. I know you mentioned a tree in your, that would have to be taken out. That's if you keep going straight down along the road, but if you jog a little bit in towards the property, you can go around the tree easily and stay away, because the right-of-way is very, you
We
can see
did,
it's very
one of the
wide.
things is that there's a no impervious area requirement by the Conservation Commission, 75 feet of wetlands.
Right.
And also, if you see, I mean, that's a pretty straight stretch up until where we start the driveway, so the site distance is pretty good. So what we're really doing is we're taking an edge off
Right,
the.
but people have asked for sidewalks all along Griffin Road. This is an area where something's happening, where it's possible to do something.
I just don't see where
Something's happening.
extending it another 50 feet would make a difference for the safety, when the safety issue is really up at the top of the hill.
We should, you gotta direct your comments.
Well, it could be discussed with the Conservation Commission, but, yeah, I understand this is an area where it's a little, the road is straighter, but there are people that are zooming through the area.
Yeah, we appreciate your feedback. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Payne, 44 Griffin Road. Ask a question and ask you to specifically point out for me in that sidewalk strip where the trees land, on which side of the sidewalk they are. Are they on both sides? Are they on between the sidewalk and the road? Are they some of both?
I believe for the most part, they're on the back side of the. if not
Away
all of
from the
them,
road?
Away from the road.
So they don't serve as a protective barrier to
Correct.
your pedestrian?
Correct.
Okay, so while I appreciate the voluntary nature of this, knowing Griffin Road as well as I do, knowing that corner as well as I do, having a non-curbed, close to the road, wider open appearance at that curve at the top, I would appreciate any rock or any obstacle that can be left that is visible to a driver between the walkway and the road. With no curb, I'm sorry, it invites people to sweep around that curve or slip, and it doesn't feel protective to me. I appreciate the voluntary nature of it, and I appreciate having something instead of nothing, but I'd like to help make it the best that it could be.
So, may I ask, which side of the street do pedestrians that are walking on Griffin Road walk on now? Do they walk on the side of the road that they're proposing to put this sort of pathway, or do they walk on the other side of the street?
They can't walk on the other side of the street.
Right.
They're invisible. That's really steep, and you have absolutely no place to go if
So,
someone comes straight at you.
I mean, at the risk of being devil's advocate, though, I mean, to what you were saying, I mean, that somebody coming in and taking a sweeping turn, in theory, that could happen now, right? I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're trying to make an improvement where
Yeah.
the locals are pointing out something that when people say, oh, it's a sidewalk, on a suburban road,
Yep.
it's not.
Yep.
I
This
will
is
say
a
this,
real, it's an unusual curve with, there are sightlines, some places that encourage young and experienced drivers to accelerate towards that corner, and then they're on a bad corner.
So,
I mean, there are utility poles that are up against the road.
Yes, if
So-
they're gonna
so-
stay there, then that's a lovely obstacle.
The utility poles are gonna stay there,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So not that you want anybody to hit a telephone pole, but.
No, you don't, but
does
it makes a
provide some
visible
Um,
alert to the driver.
You know, there's one stretch up where, like, the word road is, where it does get, you know, because the pavement is wider there,
yep.
it does get closer to the
Yeah.
road.
I've
We can look into ways to add greenery there or some, you know,
Yeah.
low-lying shrubs at least to,
I-
and again, I think a sign before you get there
Yes,
is a really-
I like that suggestion. Both directions, because the invitation to accelerate before you get to is true in both directions.
I have a question.
It's scary going over that.
It's a-
I don't
it's a-
think
it's
people are
really-
accelerating before
it's a-
that. I think they're hitting their brakes when they get to the top of that hill, because you
It's,
don't know what's on
it's
the
difficult,
other
and I
side.
very much appreciate about the construction vehicles.
I have a question for the applicant. I wasn't able to do the site walk, but I am familiar with this stretch of road. I've driven it before, and I did stop by this property ahead of the process for a different reason, just to sort of look at it. So I'm vaguely familiar. Is there any opportunity, I'm not proposing something like an actual roadside barrier that you would see on the side of a highway or something, but is there any opportunity in that 2 to 4 foot strip to put sort of a lower fence, something that you might see at the edge of something like a ball field or something, simple railroad tie, a foot or two off the ground, you know, that would at least serve as a visual sort of deterrent to the vehicles? I'm not
I
asking
would
for
say,
an
yeah,
we
but
move
I'm not
the
sure I'm not
rocks?
sure the aesthetic of it is what,
Why
Right.
can't we move the rocks?
we could move the, you know, the rocks would probably be a
Yeah,
better.
as
Why-
many
Why
that would
can't we
fit.
just take those existing rocks and put them on the street side of the walkway?
I think if
I think that's a step.
That's-
I think that
if
would be a
that's
very good
something
step,
you'd be willing
instead of
to
just
do.
Yeah,
chucking
kind of
them.
strategically to make sure.
No, it's the visual cue that the road is not wide open for you. It's
Right.
not perfect, but it's a step better.
Okay, so that's something that you'll consider as
We'll
well.
look to move the
yeah,
rocks.
Moving the rocks into that sort of strip, that 2 to 4 foot wide strip, you know, strategically placing some of the larger ones every so often so that it kind of
Yeah.
would visually deter a driver from just, you know, taking an extremely wide turn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they have a little concern for their vehicle.
Yeah.
My other question is just, you went a little fast for me, and it's stuff that I'm not familiar with. So what Bill was asking about for the preservation of the land bridge, could you tell me specifically where the different places in deeds that it, by definition, exists so that the property owners will know what they can and cannot do in that? There'd be signage, you said, and what else?
Mr. Chairman, can I answer that
Yeah, please.
question? Okay, if you look at this plan, oh, who had that little?
The pointer.
Yeah, Paul did, unfortunately.
It's one of the clickers, there's a,
Bill, can I use your
Yep.
pointer? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So here's the proposed trail that we are gonna construct. What's that?
Just push it one time.
Oh, I
And
see.
hold it, okay.
No, you don't have to hold it. That's my problem.
Yeah.
So there's the trail that we'll be constructing.
Yeah.
Somewhere around here is where there's the existing road.
Yeah.
Trail.
Okay, this is our proposed limit of work. And the Conservation Commission, by virtue of the fact that here's their 50-foot no disturb boundary to the wetland, and here's their other 50-foot, so all of this property here and here is
No touch.
untouchable. And then these purple lines represent the 75-foot setback from this wetland, and this one is from this wetland. So you can't build any structures in any of that area.
Yep.
So the only place that any construction could take place would be in this little
Little
triangle
teeny.
right here. And we're gonna have posts with signs along this that says, you know, no disturb zone. If you want to do anything in here, you have to contact the Conservation Commission and get a permit. But again, this is about the only area
Yep.
that you could, so there are, numerous protections in place that will protect this from being developed.
There's an
And
order of conditions.
So
and
are
there's an
all,
order of conditions that'll be recorded that will dictate all of this stuff and act as a notice to this homeowner and future homeowners that this is essentially the no disturb area.
so the signage, who maintains that over time?
What's that? I'm sorry.
It's plastic or is it an aluminum placard? They don't really require,
Okay. And if there's, so it's the single property that has those requirements and?
yes.
Well, every lot on this will be subject to the order conditions, and any of the lots that are up to the 50 will have those posts. So it's not just this lot that has those posts. It's
Okay, so,
gonna be, I think everyone.
Most
but
of them.
yeah.
Every one but lot one. I
And is
believe.
that information also something that's conveyed to a homeowners association so that they all are, just when it was said before that, no reasonable person would do, nevertheless, in my immediate vicinity, people do things that are against those rules that don't seem like reasonable things, but they,
I can
So-
tell you,
so-
I own a property, and Mr. Harmon knows where I live. I actually have this condition on my yard where there are posts that delineate where the limit of work was, and it was very clear in my homeowner documents that I was not allowed to encroach or go beyond those. So it's made very clear to the person who buys the property. I can
Okay.
tell you that out of personal experience.
thank you.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. Can I use the pointer, Bill? My first question is, wouldn't the property owner rather not pay taxes on that huge area that we're asking a deed restriction be on? Or is it still, they still pay taxes even if there's a deed restriction? Is that the deal?
Yes.
On a deed restriction, yes, they would still pay taxes.
I'm sorry.
I think that lot may also be a hammerhead lot that requires triple the minimum required lot area, so not all that area is actually excessive. Some of it's mandatory to satisfy zoning dimensional requirements.
Okay. Okay, so my other questions, thank you very much. My other questions, first of all, I'm thrilled at the work that you all have done to take comments into consideration and make the changes that you've made. It's pretty impressive, actually. Thank you very much. Could you also show me where the sidewalk ends? Does it go all the way to Koala Bear?
No. It ends right there.
So it doesn't even go down to
It does not. It could not get to Koala Bear anyway, just because of the wetlands, even without ADA requirements. That there's just a, it's like this from the edge of the road where that brook stream goes under the road.
Okay. And secondly, I would like to request that the 4-foot path that you're going to build to extend the historic roadway be 8 feet, be consistent all the way through there. For, as Jeff said, as for bikes, it would just be better for people to have a consistent width all the way through. And
Highlights the rail trail.
And can you, let's see, I did have, okay, easements. Will you be planting, could you plant trees along where the sidewalks, the walkway's going to go, or that you're obviously considering that now too, and other planting things? I think if you just move the stones over there, they're not going to be big enough. I'm thinking maybe you'd get some medium-sized stones from all this construction and you could move those over there, but I just think, I don't know. Thank you. Safety concerns, all
Thank
good.
you. Yep. Okay,
Actually, just one more thing.
sure.
So I'm going to agree with Emily and some other suggestion of planting in addition to the stones. I think that's a good addition. Trees, I don't know about trees, but shrubs or some kind of bushes or some kind of planting, I think would help both visually and also just as a physical buffer.
The question is there enough space between the sidewalk and the road? You plant a bush gets to be 4
That's
feet
right,
wide.
right. Yeah, well, that's maybe
I
a
think that's one
small
thing, and then
tree might
there's a
be,
maintenance question there too,
Yeah.
because we started this conversation by saying if we're doing this in the right of way,
The right of way.
the more things we pile in the right of way, we have to deal with the fact that the town's gonna have to maintain it, or you're gonna have a bunch of overgrown hedges and shrubbery that's not being maintained. Yes,
I
Joe?
also don't know long-term what impact, if any, that would have on site distance.
Right.
Plowing.
on, sorry, and what?
Plowing. Site distance?
Yeah, you start planting a bunch of
Well,
things.
you mean long-term? Well, it's on the outside of the curve, so it probably wouldn't affect sight
It
lines that
it
much.
may from our.
Oh, as you get to the top of the hill,
Well,
yes.
when you, as you
Right.
leave Cloverleaf Lane,
Right,
you're
that's
looking
true.
left.
Well, but there are like small junipers, which never get very big, that could be planted, they're dwarf bushes.
If you
The
could give us,
plows.
if you could give us somehow the flexibility to make those decisions
Yep.
during
Okay.
construction, we'd be open.
That's
to
fine
that.
with me, all I ask is
Yeah, yeah.
be considered. Thank you.
I think you guys have heard,
Yep.
moving the rocks of reasonable size that you can move, and perhaps if some terms of construction, those
That's
could
what
also
we're
be.
talking
looked at.
about. If we
Yeah.
find something, we
Move
can
it.
move it up there, you know?
That's great. It's less to haul away, I suppose. All right. So, Jeff, I think we'd like to entertain a draft decision at our next meeting.
We will do our very best, sir. I believe we will be attempting to craft a draft decision for a definitive subdivision, including all 6 lots. We will be working on, I believe, 2 separate stormwater management permits. Are you still hopeful to have Lot C separate?
Steve, is Lot C separate still? or it's-
I think you gotta, I know they worked on that, but I think you have to have one because
Because
the
the homeowners.
drainage, the drainage from the driveway actually goes down
Okay.
into the road.
So
Cloverleaf.
one
now.
stormwater management permit for all the lots?
Yes.
And then if we can, a special permit for common driveway if we can.
Right.
Got it.
Got it. Okay.
Is November 1st our next meeting?
It is. Is that enough
Yeah.
time?
We will do our very best.
All right.
Confident.
Thank you.
Great. So, given that, is there a motion to continue PB 2133 for 22 Griffin Road, Cloverleaf Fields to the November 1st meeting of the planning board at 7:30 at a location to be announced as the part of the meeting packet?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Hi,
And I say aye.
Thank you very much for your
Very much,
time.
gentlemen. See you on the 1st.
thanks.
All right. I just need a quick sip.
You're doing a quick sip, I'll take this one from you.
Okay.
You want this?
No, I got you, oh, yeah, I'll take that one there.
Thank
You
you.
want any?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'll take one too, please.
You gonna drink this through my mask?
Dump it on your head.
I think if you drink it through the mask, it's technically waterboarding yourself. You don't want to be doing that.
I don't know.
Jeff? You? Joe?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. After a brief hydration break, the next item before us is PB 2136, site plan review for a modification of a site plan review to allow for expansion at 22 Town Farm Road, buildings 13 and 16, commonly known as the Mill Works. Okay, Jeff, is there any status update before we go to the applicant?
Actually, I'm going to turn this over to Joe.
Oh, Joe,
He's handling this one.
any status update?
Yeah, so I think just based on the revised staff report, different staff from different departments was able to go out to the site multiple times and just tried to provide an update to the board. I myself went with Kate and Darren one evening just to kind of assess the property just based on the last meeting. So what's in the staff report is based on the different visits that were at the property and what was observed.
Yep. Great, thank you. guess we can go to the applicant.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, before we begin, obviously, we read the staff report. Our building inspector is here, and he's noted some issues that haven't been completed from the original subdivision, the original application brought to us. And in my opinion, I think it's premature to even discuss the modification to the site plan until the actual requirements of the first decision have been adhered to. So I think it's a waste of everybody's time, the applicant, the council, our time to even discuss this any further. This is a serious safety concerns with the parking lot issues. So I'm inclined to make a motion to continue this until such time as the building inspector has informed us that the requirements under the original site plan have been adhered to. At that point, we can discuss, modifying that site plan.
So I think that's a motion to continue to a time indeterminate once the original requirements of the initial site plan have been met.
Yes.
I would agree.
I kind of agree with you. We also need to discuss the fee before we go any further. So if we all choose to not discuss this any further until everything else is met, perhaps wait on the fee until then. Otherwise, we need to discuss it tonight before we do anything.
So I think my recommendation on that would be, obviously there's been more staff involved. Henry's been out there and our staff has been busy with this, that we wait, and when Henry comes back and says what has been done and it's been completed, we evaluate at that point the time that's been consumed by town departments to determine if there's going to be a reduction in the fee.
I think that's consistent with what we talked about the last time, because we wanted to see how much work would be involved before we discussed the fee, so I agree.
There's also the issue that while the applicant claims that the buildings 13 and 16 are being used for overflow, building 16 has already been built out for use, and it, at least on my site visit, was in use the entire section of it. So technically, they're not supposed to be using buildings 13 and 16. So would that be a cease and desist for use of building 16? And
I don't know that we can make that determination. I think that's the building commissioner's determination. I mean, I certainly would support that.
I know that that's not in our purview, but I just, I'm just saying, if we don't continue, we have a situation here that's continuing where they technically should not be using that building.
I would just ask the applicant, sorry, Paul, one sec. I would ask the applicant to, take a ride to like one of the other bigger developments in town. On 110, you've got, look at Cornerstone or Westford Valley Marketplace, where there's traffic and there's fire lanes denoted and, parking's clear. And, you've got a big situation here. It looks like there's been some attempts being made to sort of, stencil fire lane and stuff like that, but it's not up to code. So I would just ask, to, address it per the initial requirements, and then we could have a further conversation about expanded use.
Well, I think we've been asked by this applicant to accept that they are leveraging human resources to try to manage the problem at times of their peak activity, right? They're addressing the traffic circulation concerns through the use of people. And what I found difficult when I read this packet and what was observed by staff was to see some of the, I would say, life safety issues going on inside the building. So it certainly makes it difficult to sort of accept the credibility of the applicant's efforts when you see what's actually going on inside the building. I will say that. Bob, do you have any perspectives here that you'd like to share? I mean, there's a motion that I don't know that we've got a second. I've heard agreement, but I haven't heard a second. And Jeff I asked, do you mind if I go?
No, that's fine. But before you folks maybe second, I'd like to, if possible,
Sure.
chime in.
Sure. Yeah. Bob, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so I agree with what Mike has said, but I think that we should, and we started to just have a discussion on the concern relating to the safety issue of the traffic, because I made 2 site visits on my own back on September 30th, about 4:30 p.m., and there was very few cars at that time. That was a Thursday afternoon. Then on Saturday the 2nd, I went there at 12:25, and it was a horror show in terms of the parking. I was astonished at not just the volume of cars, but how they were parked illegally outside of some of the parking spaces. And they don't seem to be going down to the far end of the lot past one of the other buildings that was marked out for the use by this facility. So my concern is, one, we've got to get this under control for the existing situation, and 2, is there going to be sufficient capacity when the 2 additional buildings, 13 and 16, are added fully? You know, and that's my question is, okay, what was the calculation for the 2 buildings currently in use, and what will be the added traffic? And, you know, I'm not sure that site has the capacity to handle it. It just seemed to be almost at capacity, and it certainly didn't appear to be operating efficiently when I was there. So I appreciate everything you're saying, because I observed the same thing when I was there back on the 2nd of October. Over.
Yeah, thank you. Jeff, you wanted us to go to you.
Want is a strong word. So it seems like there's a variety of issues. So one, it sounds like the board has some issues with prior decisions issued by you in conditions of approval. So it sounds like there may be some enforcement from a prior decision. And it seems like the board wants to have satisfaction of perceived life safety, pedestrian safety, site circulation issues before contemplating the authorization of additional use by the commercial recreation. And so I would caution you to maybe try to separate those. If you want to have a conversation about enforcement, it might be proper to have a particular agenda item to that end on the prior decision. I think the applicant is hearing loud and clear your concerns about that. We can certainly ask our building commissioner to chime in. It's certainly possible for, you know, once the board at some point gets a plan that satisfies all the concerns of the various departments relative to life safety, you could conditionally approve something but not allow that space to become operational until all those things are in place. And you may want to see the outcome from this first part before authorizing something else. There is an issue, though, with continuing a public hearing to some futuristic unknown date. I would instead recommend that you at least pick a date certain if you were to go that way, perhaps after the applicant has a chance to weigh in, if you'll let them. Pick a time, place, date certain, so at least the public hearing process is not flawed and would have to start anew.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So, how do you want to proceed? There's a motion, which I don't think has been officially seconded yet.
I'm willing to hear from the applicant if they want to
First.
let us know, and then we can.
All right.
I would second to extend to a date certain.
Okay. Let's go to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul Alphin, representing the applicant. Before you vote, I think it would be helpful to have a discussion for a couple of reasons. One is that I was going to present pictures of some of the work that has been done of late to show that there's progress being made toward addressing some of the concerns, but also so that we all as a group can identify specifically what action is required as part of the prior decision. I represented the applicant when the applicant obtained the prior decision. I know that for example, one of the conditions having to do with marking the property as a fire lane was a condition that wasn't strictly associated with the need to provide fire protection of the building. It was about controlling traffic to make sure that people didn't use the area as a drop-off and didn't block the roadway while they're dropping their kids off for their recreation facility. And now we find that there is fire lane doesn't meet all the requirements for fire lane. So I think there needs to be some give and take, some discussion about the particular concerns that the life safety officials have in the community with the applicant and with, so that everybody knows what needs to be accomplished, what has been accomplished, and whether there's a need to amend some of those conditions of approval, rather than just saying, you got to do whatever is on that prior decision, and whoever the current life safety officials interpret it to be, before you'll have a dialogue with us. So I'd like to have a discussion. If the building commissioner is the right person to go through his concerns, to hear from him, so that I have an understanding, I can apply the applicable requirements in the law, the applicable requirements in the prior decision, and give counsel to my client about how best to address that, rather than the board saying we can't discuss anything tonight and come back some other day.
So, based upon the initial decision, right, the original site plan review and the approval that was given, is there a lack of clarity by your client as to what the requirements were, or do you have some suggestions for items that were in that decision that you do not think are applicable any longer that you would like to share with us?
It's not that black and white. I mean, our client would like to get some direction, more specific direction, from the building commissioner, and in areas of the fire, if the fire department has concerns, from the fire department.
Well, one of the things I saw in the packet is that they don't believe their ladder truck could actually navigate a turn in the parking lot if that needed to happen at a time when that lot happened to be fairly populated.
Except that isn't a condition of approval of the prior decision, which has not been fulfilled today, so we're not there yet.
Yep.
Because today you're talking about putting the current application on hold.
Right.
So that has something to do with the new application, apparently.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find out specifically what the concerns are vis-a-vis the initial decision, so that we can have a better idea of what my client needs to click off and get done, so we can come back and talk about the new permit.
Right.
Makes sense. Jeff, would that be the building commissioner that could go through the decision before? Because there was signage issues, which, we
Right.
talked about last time. Some of those might be still on order, but some still are just not seem to be to code. Signage, marking, fire lane, et cetera. Is that something that the building inspector would look at and say, okay, these things have been accomplished, these things are still waiting to be done, and give that to the applicant so they can come back and say, we feel like we've addressed them and here where they are in process?
So I don't think that falls under the purview of just a single department head. I think some of it may fall under the purview of the fire chief. Some is under the building commissioner, and I'd have to check if there's yet another, and we may also want engineering to weigh in on a couple of minor issues. So I don't know if it might be most productive for staff to arrange a meeting with the applicant prior to your next meeting to get on the same page, if not complete agreement about what's what, and so bring that to you rather than try to have a prolonged conversation here without benefit of at least one or two of the other folks who might have to weigh in.
Because my client didn't understand that it was this problematic, that he hadn't received information from the life safety people that indicated that we were at this stage of concern.
We've never heard a word about any of this. This is news to me tonight, and we've had ongoing discussions. I'm surprised that none of this has been brought up before. We don't ignore life safety issues, and they've been in the building and never once raised an issue except one which was corrected the next day. So I'm completely blindsided here. I don't know what's happening, and we need to know the specifics. If there are issues, somebody needs to tell us.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
we're happy to arrange a meeting prior to next meeting, so we're all on the same page.
Whatever, I mean, you guys decide, but we don't have any idea. This is completely new to us.
And if we can do that, we'd like to be back as soon as possible for an update, so we can update the board where we are. And there may be, it's possible, a condition of approval in the prior decision that we may request a modification for because experience or other conditions have given cause to amend that. But, so we'd like to keep the dialogue open. We wouldn't want to be continued to date and not have the opportunity to engage in conversation with the board.
May I amend my motion to continue this public hearing till our next meeting, November 1st? Give the applicant a chance to talk with staff and town departments and figure out what needs to be done under this.
Absolutely. And I said the time indeterminate, but that, I didn't mean that was like a far, galaxy far away. I just didn't have a date in front of me at the time I said that. But do we want to, I mean, you indicated that you have some
Sure.
images or something to share with us for progress.
Well, I don't,
Do we want to entertain this or not, is I guess the question.
Well,
Or do
it would make sense to
We
do
have
it.
a motion, was there a second? If there's no second, then.
Well, yeah, I've heard
then
no
we-
second yet, no official second. Well,
I second. I'll still second.
So then we.
Extending the next meeting
Vote
with,
on the motion first.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue PB 2136 to the next planning board meeting on the 1st of November at 7:30 at a location to be announced with the meeting packet. Motion and a second. All those in favor,
Well,
Bob?
do you want
Wait,
to see if, Bob, do you have any discussion on this?
yeah, any discussion, Bob, on that?
Nothing further beyond what I said, and I think I agree with the approach that's being discussed, so I'm fine.
Dylan, do we want to make an amendment to say, with the understanding that staff will have a meeting with the applicant prior to our next meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Provide an update, yeah.
we're also sort of kicking the can on the discussion around the fee, but I guess we're okay with that, and I guess we'll have to tackle the fee at the next meeting, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the motion? I guess, okay, all those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this, sooner the better, because if there's, Jeff, if there's work to be done, give us as much time as possible to get it done. So we'll make ourselves available.
Thank you. We'll reach out as soon as we can.
All right, thank you. All right.
Or Joe, whoever's going to be in charge.
Joe, and my apologies, Mr. Genowitz, I was supposed to turn that one over to you.
Joe's in charge.
No apologies.
Okay. The next public hearing item before us is PB 2140. Special permit for work in a Zone A special flood hazard area in accordance with Section 8.2.5 of the Town of Westford zoning bylaw to allow for the demolition of the existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling and associated site work at 53 Elm Road in the Residence B zoning district, as identified on Assessor's Map 074, parcel 0235, lot 0000. Good evening.
Oh, I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Floor is yours.
all right, thank you. Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Robert Givens, the owner and applicant. What we're proposing to do is demolish the existing home and reconstruct a new home with a new septic system and associated driveway and whatnot. The entire lot is within the 100-year floodplain. You can see the long dash line that represents the existing floodplain. The flood elevation was determined from a LOMA that was submitted for one of the other lots in the neighborhood and approved by FEMA. And as a result, the entire lot is within it. What we're proposing to do is fill in a portion of the floodplain. You can see the new floodplain line that Joe is highlighting right now with the arrow. That will be the new elevation 171.5, which is the floodplain elevation. There is a little bit more work being done on the lot outside of that. There is a limit of work shown as the silt fence and straw wattles. That represents the limit of work. There is an analysis that compares the amount of flood storage lost versus the capacity within Nabnasset Lake. And as a result of that filling, the flood elevation increase because of the filling is negligible. So there will be no adverse impacts to abutting properties. Since it's a ponding condition, there is no flow velocities that we need to be concerned with. So essentially, we're meeting the criteria of the special permit. We've also received an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission for the work being proposed this evening. We have one application, or an application in for special permits for other work with the zoning board. The next meeting with the zoning board is this coming Wednesday. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board for answer any questions.
Great. Jeff, or Joe, do we have any feedback from engineering? Have they reviewed the plans? Any comments?
They're willing to take a look at the floodplain calculations if the board wished to have that as some sort of condition on the approval of this project, if that's the way the board wants to go. They're more than happy to look at it if you would like.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go to the board for any questions. Darren?
All right, thanks, Dylan. Mark, on this, just a question around the leach, the septic system here. Does the current house, what's the septic system there? I mean, it's probably obviously old.
There, we actually found the septic system while we were doing test pits. It's in the front of the house between the road and the existing house. There was a septic tank, and we did find at least one leach field, or one leach line. The soil in that condition, in that location, is actually loamy, mucky peat fill, and we've encountered a couple of stumps and some other trash and debris. So it's, and the depth of the groundwater was pretty high too. So the system was in the groundwater. It's just not doing even close to what it's supposed to do.
No,
so that will be completely removed. In fact, there's a lot of fill throughout that area that's completely unsuitable for a structural foundation. So there'll be a lot of, all of that's going to be come out and put in with, backfilled with stone to construct the new house.
All right, so I'm assuming that the geomat system is going to be a lot more efficient than what was already there?
Yeah.
And, and I ask because of the floodplain thing, is there a concern of the floodplain rising and that being submerged? I mean, no more so than the old one would have been, I guess.
No, there isn't. The bottom, I don't recall what the bottom of the leach field elevation is. It's pretty close to what the floodplain elevation is. So even if the floodplain does come up, it's still going to be fairly well protected.
All right, so it's certainly an improvement on what's currently there. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Darren. Mike?
No questions.
Okay. Kate?
I looked up the geomat online. It's pretty cool. And it definitely will be an improvement and hopefully will help the nutrient issue with the pond or the lake, since there is a nutrient issue. I agree with the recommended condition that I think it was engineering proposed. Don't ask me to state what it is. I just made a note. I agreed with it. And about the compensation, you said that it's 2,575 cubic feet. And while I appreciate by itself, this isn't the only time we've had requests before us of this type for filling of land along the lake. And in the previous ones, there was compensation, even though they as well only filled in an additional minimal amount of land. So I would, to me, it's really up to engineering if they find that they agree with your logic about the compensation.
Right. This is also regulated by the Conservation Commission and Mass DEP. So there's very specific performance standards for work in the bordering land subject to flooding, which is the same as the floodplain. And we did meet those performance standards. The commission did issue an order of conditions.
But I do want to get, I would like to, I know you'd like to get this done tonight, but I would like to give engineering a chance to weigh in, because we have had this in the past, long sought for in Nabnasset, and there was always compensation.
Yeah, I've done a few others on this road and provided compensatory storage when it's available, but there's just no availability of it for it on this lot.
Dig a pit.
Wish it worked that way, but it doesn't.
And also just to confirm, I assume you've already confirmed that because of the filling and the design and such, that it won't increase flow to the neighboring
Correct.
parcels.
Yes. It won't increase anything on the neighbors.
Okay. Bob?
Yes. The only question I have is, well, relative to the grading, I'm gathering it. You referenced earlier that you got the a nearby property, so I'm assuming that's the house to the north. So I'm assuming there won't be any runoff issues going towards that house, since we can see their floodplain elevation. My question has to do with the existing house immediately south of this proposed new home, and whether or not the regrading to raise this up for the floodplain elevation is going to cause increased runoff onto that property from this property on Elm Road.
No, it will not, because that was discussed with the ZBA and the Conservation Commission, and we are providing a filter strip, landscape buffer between the two lots that'll be slightly raised so that none of the runoff from this lot will be flowing to the south onto that abutting property. We're also providing a drip edge around the perimeter of the house, at least three of the four sides. And that drip edge will contain all of the runoff from the roof. As I mentioned earlier, the entire ground beneath the house is going to be backfilled with crushed stone, probably about 6 feet of it. So there'll be plenty of storage available to handle the roof runoff from that area.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Okay, so it's, yes. Oh, Jeff, yes.
Didn't know if Mark, who threw out the term LOMA, or Letter of Map Amendment, if you want to do a public service announcement and explain to everyone who may not know.
Sure. A LOMA is a Letter of Map Amendment, which is a process by which you request that FEMA issue an amendment to their delineation, which removes either a property or a dwelling structure from the floodplain. And it's an analysis of the floodplain, and it's usually based on more local and more accurate topographic information. There have been several done on this road. Some of them actually resulted in the removal of the house from the floodplain, and some of them resulted in a confirmation that the house is in fact in the floodplain. So they all use the same elevation of 171.5.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so it sounds like we'd like to get some feedback from engineering before we render a decision here.
Can we,
I don't know, I was, or
Subject to.
yeah, can we put it subject to them
Yeah.
agreeing to the calculation, so he doesn't have to come back?
Would that be sufficient?
Joe?
I mean, it's
Would
really,
that be sufficient,
it's
Joe?
really up to the board. I mean, it seems like engineering was comfortable with moving forward with that. You know, if there was a great deviation from what they found, we could certainly ask the applicant to come back. I don't know if you wanted to put any kind of you know, condition of how much deviation that would be, if you wanted to get that specific, or if you were comfortable with engineering, the applicant just working with engineering to reach a point of consensus.
I agree, I accept putting in a condition that they work with engineering.
To get approval prior to building permit.
Yeah.
Before we do that, is there anybody from the audience who'd like to comment on PB 2140, a special permit for work in a Zone A special flood area for 53 Elm Road? Okay, seeing none, then is there a motion to approve?
Do you want to close the?
Oh, yeah, I guess we do.
I move that we close the public hearing on 53 Elm Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Great.
Great. Thank you very much.
Motion to approve PB 2140, special permit for 53 Elm Road. Contingent upon engineering's review of the floodplain calculations and reaching an agreement with the applicant on an acceptable plan that meets.
Yeah, and incorporating the conditions suggested by engineering?
Wasn't
Was it
clear,
engineering?
engineering didn't,
Engineering hasn't looked at this.
they haven't looked at
But
it.
he
They-
Looked at it, yeah, they're willing to, if the board
Right.
wishes them to review the floodplain
I
calculation.
think we should leave it as subject to engineering reaching a consensus with the applicant on their floodplain calculations and agreeing that they meet the town of Westford's standards for that,
Yeah, perfect.
for that part of town. And its proximity to Nabnasset Lake.
I read something somewhere.
Yep, there's a lot of stuff in that packet, that's for sure.
So moved?
Okay, so moved. That's
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike, aye?
Aye.
Yeah. Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
God darn it, I have to find it. Oh, it was staff who recommended it. So staff will make sure it gets in there.
Okay.
Can we just say ditto for
Great.
the next one?
Thank you.
I don't know, the next one. All right, so the next item, public hearing item before us is PB 2141, which is a special permit for work in a Zone A special flood hazard area in accordance with section 8.2.5 of the Westford zoning bylaws for the demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling and associated site work at 60 Elm Road.
This one is
Is there
very,
a, I'm sorry,
I
is
move
there,
that we open the public hearing for 60 Elm Road.
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mark Slager, Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Gary Polewski, who's with me this evening in the audience. This is very similar to the other project, except that the floodplain is only partially onto the lot, and a corner of the existing house is within the floodplain. When we initially filed this application, we were going to be removing the entire house from the floodplain, but a portion of the deck and one of the sonotubes, or two of the sonotubes, would be still within the floodplain. We've been before the ZBA, and we've made some modifications, and we'll be continuing to make more modifications such that the entire house, including the deck, will be outside the floodplain. So the only work in the floodplain would be removing the existing house and removing the supports for the existing deck, and then regrading it to match the existing grade. So with that, I guess what the question would be, do we even need a special permit since none of the new work will be within the floodplain?
So are you shrinking the deck or moving the house a little bit?
A little of both.
Okay. So if the work falls completely outside of the floodplain, Joe, do they even need this special permit?
That's a good question.
It's a great question. So while they may not be building in the floodplain, I think they're still doing work within the floodplain, because they're still removing existing structures in the floodplain.
Okay.
All right, easy enough.
We have an opinion.
Right. Since we are removing the structures, we are also removing, any impediments to the floodplain. So we are actually resulting and generating more storage within the floodplain for Nabnasset, albeit negligible. We are slightly improving the condition.
Making up for the other one.
Yeah.
I feel like,
Sure.
I feel like the fun question here is to ask, what did you find in the test pits on this parcel?
All sand and gravel.
Really?
Yeah, the septic tank, the septic system is off to the east of the existing house, which is to the right, and the new septic system will be in the front right corner of the house.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, is there anything, Joe, that we should know about here before we go to the board for questions?
The project is still in front of the Conservation Commission, so unlike the last one where it's already received approval, this one has not yet. And I think the applicant mentioned it's still in front of the zoning board as well, still undergoing some modifications there. So,
Okay.
I guess it depends on the comfort level of the board, if you were waiting on some of the other boards to act prior to you or not.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, great. Well, then let's go to the board. We'll start at the opposite end. So, Bob, do you have any questions about 60 Elm Road?
Yeah, I was trying to understand what was happening with the water main. I see it being removed, but I was having a hard time to see where it would be placed and what was happening, just to understand. Is it just being rerouted?
Well, the water main itself extends onto the subject property, and it goes into where the leach field is going to be. So the main itself is just going to get cut back and dead-ended back in the Elm Road right away. And then there's a service for the house to the east that will have to be relocated as well.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thanks, Bob. Kate?
Is any of this work going to be within 30 feet of the pond?
None of the structure will be any closer to the pond than is currently existing. That's one of the requirements of the Conservation Commission.
I'm just trying to think, if you haven't gone before them, is there any gotcha that could affect us if we voted on it?
Well, I think one thing that we're going to commit to is to have the entire structure be outside the floodplain, regardless of what the final shape of the house is and the final size of the house and location. It's going to be outside the floodplain. So if we could get, if you could condition the special permit such that the entire structure will be out of the floodplain, then I think we would be good to go.
That's a good condition.
But
Go ahead, Bob.
could I just ask a clarifying question on that response?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the plan, and it appears that the screened porch is closer than the existing structure.
It's not closer than the existing deck, and the screen porch is going to be constructed on sonotubes. So that portion of it was,
Okay.
yep.
And I think even though it's bigger, this is a lot better than what's there now. So it should help the quality of the water in NAB. And I do agree with staff recommendation about a condition of approval specifying that prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, a final as-built plan with certification that was constructed in substantial conformance with the approved plan be submitted to the planning department. So I'm okay with it, with the addition of the two conditions that we mentioned tonight.
I have a concern with that one because this isn't going to be the final plan. But I think we could issue a certification that the structure as built will be outside the floodplain.
So if we issue this decision just solely for the demolition, right, I think we're okay.
Well, it's the demolition and minor regrading, so I
Minor
think
regrading, yeah.
there could be a condition to this approval that the applicant testifies that the new construction will not be within the 100-year floodplain.
Yep.
And that the grading will be consistent with the final approved plan,
Yeah.
which we're not getting until he's through Conservation and Zoning Board. Right. And you're okay with that?
Sure.
So you want to skip what's in the staff report then?
No. I'm sure if you are going for the Conservation Commission, are they not going to want some kind of final as-built anyhow?
Yeah, we'll need a certificate of compliance from them,
Right,
which
so-
will show exactly what I need to show for this board.
Exactly.
With
So
respect
it's
to the
not asking you to
floodplain.
do additional work, it's just submit
I don't think Mark had a problem, excuse me, Douglas DeShane. I don't think we had a problem with the requirement of the as-built. It just, we didn't want to say that it had to be in substantial conformance with this plan, because this plan originally showed work in the floodplain, which we're not gonna do, so.
Gotcha, okay.
You can have the decision note that the applicant, testify they're revising the plan in accordance with pending approvals to locate the proposed structure outside of the area.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Well,
Staff knows what we really mean, right?
Well, and do we need
Some
to?
days.
Do we need to add a condition as well that would also say that construction would not be any closer to the current structures within? Or, I mean, I understand that conservation's already going to require that, right? But we.
I wouldn't go there. Your
No,
purview
that's
is
not
really
ours.
related to work in the floodplain,
Okay.
and I'd like to keep that separate.
Fair enough. Great. Okay. We got through Kate. Are you?
I'm all set.
Okay, Mike?
All set.
Okay, Darren?
Nothing new.
Great. Okay. Is there a motion on 16?
Comments?
Oh, comments from the audience, yes. Seeing none. Is there a motion on PB 214160 Elm Road?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Great.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Bob?
Second. Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Is there a motion? Am I putting that forward?
Oh, gosh.
I've lost track, to be honest, of all the things
Let
that you
your
want in
vice
it.
chair get practice.
Okay.
I move that we approve PB 214160 Elm Road, conditioned,
For what?
Subject to discussion tonight.
subject to discussion tonight,
For a special permit.
for a special permit for
Yeah.
work within the flood zone,
Okay.
for the demolition of the current structure and minor regrading of the area. What else? That's it, right?
That's the actual,
Special permit for work in a Zone A special flood hazard area in accordance with section 8.2.5 for the demolition and minor regrading of the area within the Zone A flood zone.
with conditions,
As
as conditioned.
conditioned
tonight.
through tonight's
Discussion.
discussion. Yeah.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Darren?
Aye.
Mike? Aye. Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye.
Okay.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thanks, good luck.
All right. Quick water break.
Look at that, net zero change to the lake.
Yeah, .0006 of an inch.
And then this one doing better, so it offsets it.
Okay. All right. I think we're taking a very brief recess.
I'm gonna have Dave sign these. Shots are up 6-0.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, I was recording it, come on.
It's not over yet.
I'm just kidding.
It's only in the second inning.
No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Doug.
They're off to the kind of start they had the other night.
Oh, they were on tonight?
That was an ugly motion.
The decision will be beautiful.
Of course it was.
Not black and white, but.
Thanks to Joe.
And Sierra.
I suppose I might as well use the bathroom.
How's your trip?
Good, we packed a lot into a fairly short amount of time, but it was successful. Good. That project's gonna be a nightmare, but that's my next year problem.
Yeah, should I point out that my husband is on the clean energy and sustainability group, and his terminology is electric vehicle supply equipment. Just pretty nice stuff. Charging station is like tissues versus Xerox.
I don't have a good answer.
There's no answer.
We can call the committee whatever we want, and they can, that's
Change the
part.
name, that's
That,
right.
no, but that's part of what they do.
That's right. Come up with it. Do you come up with the charge, or do they come up with the mission statement or whatever? You come up with that, right?
I don't know who came up with it.
Joe did. No, Sierra.
Joe
Joe?
and Sierra, and you sort of approved it.
Yeah.
We did approve it.
So it's your charge.
And I handed it out to Conscom as a great,
A rose is a rose by any other name, so.
it's a great model for other boards to take advantage of having working groups.
No, I was in California the last time.
Nice.
Well, I was
Be
in LA.
nice to
so
be
not
somewhere warmer tonight.
really. Yes. Although it's really
I am.
warm.
I know, way warmer. Too warm.
Hey, it's 4:30 in the morning and it's 82 degrees.
Time for a jog. 4:30 in the morning. It's a public servant.
I just think we started 2 hours ago.
All right.
Work late.
We're back from our brief recess. We are done with our public hearing items. We are on to general business items. General business item A is a continuing discussion around the working group for EV charging stations.
Yeah, so there really isn't much to report from the last meeting. There are still 2 openings right now, one from Healthy Westford, one from the Economic Development Committee.
Yep.
The Economic Development Committee is going to have a meeting on the 21st, so we'll be able to try to get some more feedback from them, see if anybody's willing to step forward and be a representative from that group. We haven't heard from Healthy Westford as far as I know at this point. But, you know, given where we are, I don't know if it's the board's preference to try to approve those that have volunteered to be part of this working group for now, and then once somebody from each of those groups comes forward, approve them at that time. So that way, at least those that are willing and ready to start working on this can start to march forward and get some work done. But it's up to the board if you want to continue to wait or to appoint people now.
Thanks, Joe. Does anyone have an opinion? I think it would
Might as well
be.
vote them in.
Yeah.
And get
I
working.
thought we already did.
No, we kicked it down the road, expecting more people
Yeah.
to do one
No, but
vote.
we already voted on approving the 3 at-large people and somebody else. We had a list when we did the charge.
We had the list of positions, but we didn't have the volunteers at that point.
Okay.
Well, we had an idea, but they weren't official at
Whatever.
that point.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, unless anybody's opposed, well, I mean, I don't see any reason to hold those folks back from starting to work.
No.
Nope.
So,
I mean, it's not up to us to approve who from whatever committee is at the rep, you know?
I suppose not.
Is the select board appoint them?
No, it's a working group for this committee.
So technically, if somebody, when somebody steps forward from the other groups, if they do, we would approve them to the working group at a later time, right?
You would, so you started by setting up, the positions, the slots, and then there were some people who volunteered. And so presumably, if there's a committee that you reached out that you wanted representation, you would usually defer to that committee to see who was willing.
Right.
In theory, you could always say no, but of course, you don't turn away
Right.
free volunteers here. So it's up to you to appoint people to your
The
work.
CPC never said, no, you can't be on it.
They surely did not. So, okay, then, given that, is there a motion to approve all of the members of the electric vehicle charging stations working group on the list that is being maintained by Joe?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, Darren?
Aye.
Mike? Aye. Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Excellent. Okay, that addresses general business item A. General business item B is to consider a request for minor modifications to a prior approval in order to endorse plans and sign a covenant for PB 2102, definitive subdivision plan, special permit for an open space residential development, and a stormwater management permit at 0 and 37 Carlisle Road, likely to be named the Diane Lane subdivision. Joe? No.
Sorry, this one's mine. So, this is a bit of.
Keep you on your
Maybe a little
toes.
note in the
I know,
agenda
I
of who from town staff to.
We just want to keep you on your toes, that's all.
Yeah, I'm trying to go to you. He's like, oh, wait, that one's me.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, but
I'll just get it wrong every time. That's fine.
this is one of those chicken and egg situations. Normally, we have the usual, plan and covenant, and one references the other, and you
Yep.
usually end up recording them simultaneously. In this case, we have another variable. There's, the applicant is not yet the property owner, and the current owner whom there's a purchase and sale agreement with the applicant. They don't want to necessarily burden their property with an easement that's unnecessary for their purposes. They would prefer to have the applicant do that once the applicant acquires the property. So the applicant has suggested a solution that satisfies their ends and I think is consistent with your concerns. That is, the board could act if you first found their request to be minor in nature relative to a condition of approval of your decision, your prior decision. Find it minor and authorize us to work with them where you folks can endorse the plans, vote to endorse the plans, execute the covenant. That's a requirement under subdivision control law.
Yep.
The one snag would be to then allow them to record that and to withhold the start of any pre-construction meeting or issuance of any permits until such time as the required easement is recorded and provided proof of recording to town staff. That way, you get everything that you need. They have all the ownership rights before they can ever do the pre-construction meeting, and the intent is satisfied without these unnecessary hiccups.
So moved.
I think that's a good idea on a lot of these applications going forward, that the language should be that way instead of the chicken and egg way. But
We learn.
Well, that's the way it was historically, guys. Just to get the plan signed, it was the covenant and the plans. But with some of these more complicated projects where there have been these important and complicated easements, the board moved to well, let's get those easements in place as part of this stay. And so it was a reasonable play, but then it turned out with the ownership, it's if the developer owns the property, then that's easy to do. But as you know, in most cases, developers are entering P&Ss subject to permits, and then the closing subject to the signed plan. So you can't, you get into, yes, I suppose for future we should consider what the ownership interest is at the time of application, and because by making it a prerequisite to building permits, you get your guarantee that the easements are recorded before,
Right.
Anything's built. So we appreciate your consideration of that, and I assure you we'll get those easements in because they're going to want building permits.
Right.
And a pre-construction meeting.
And a pre-construction meeting, of course.
Right. So, okay, understanding all of that, I will go to the board for any comments before we put forward a motion. Bob, any comments on this?
Yes. First off, it just seems very logical. I think we just heard that. And I think Doug discussed, looking at how we approach this in the future. And I think that's a very astute and good recommendation for us to think about with respect to ownership interests. The only comment I have is one to Doug, just to fix a typo, which is on the second page of the access and utility easements as shown in page 168 of our packet. And it should be the remainder, not the remainder of the page.
Well, thank you, Bob. I will correct that right away, and given the fact that we're going to have a little bit of time before we record the easements, I'll have plenty of time to do that. Thank you.
So that's everything I have. That's it.
Thanks, Bob.
He finds on page 5 of the package.
Kate?
I had some comments too, as well, rather. The declaration of restrictive covenants, I guess, is that under consideration still here tonight? On the second page of it, item 8, I just, this is something we had a comment about this on a previous covenant. It says, upon final completion of construction of all ways and the construction of all municipal services as specified herein, comma, within 4 years from the date of the subdivision plan is endorsed by the planning board, comma, should that be an either or because we had this once before. What if does this mean that the construction of all ways and municipal services has to be done within 4 years from the date?
That's, that's the clock that ticks, and if they can't get to it prior to that, they need to come
in
back.
for an extension. Yes, that's why it isn't or, it's both. The roads have to be completed and it has to be done within 4 years.
Otherwise, it's an automatic rescission.
Correct.
Okay, just confirming.
No, and Kate, it's a good question. Town council actually had reviewed that language and that's what we came to.
Okay. I thought I had some more. Let me. On the access and utility easement.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you will fill in the deed and in the beginning part of it, where you're talking about Smurf as the grantor and we're the grantee, and then the next paragraph, it says, recorded with said deed in that plan book, such and such, in deed.
Right, that's because I have to record the signed Marlaws that you guys are signing tonight before I can fill that in.
No, but deeds aren't recorded in a plan book.
Oh, I see.
So it just says with said deed in book, recorded in book,
Right,
blah, blah.
or said registry of deeds.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not, it won't be recorded in a plan book.
Well, we have time for that.
Yep,
Anyhow.
no, yep.
And so it talks about the grantee having the rights to do stuff. So again, this implies that the town is responsible for maintaining all stormwater components. But I can see the ones in the street, but not the infiltration and stuff that's on the common land. It's further down on that. It's further down at the bottom of that page. Just grantee shall have the right to cut down, trim trees, blah, 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 for maintenance of installed utilities as well as access. But the town's not responsible for maintaining some of the stormwater components.
This doesn't create a responsibility on the town's part to do any of that, but if something should happen where the homeowners association is not maintaining any utilities that are in that area, the town would have the right to come in under this easement and correct it. It's
Okay.
not creating an obligation, it's just giving them an opportunity, should they do it.
Okay, I just wanted
Right,
to
Jeff, I mean,
confirm
I
that.
agree with that, and this document would not serve to trump the governance of the overarching decision. So
Okay,
that trumps.
I just wanted to make sure. That's all I had for comments.
Thanks, Kate. Mike?
All set.
Darren?
Seems logical to me.
Great.
All set.
Okay, great. Well, it's not
Comment.
technically a public hearing, but sure.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's right, it isn't. Sorry. Emily Teller. Can I ask for neighborhood information? How many houses are finally going to be in this development?
8.
Okay, just didn't know. And I saw as you were flying through the light fixtures, and I know you guys know that I'm a dark sky person, but it looked like they were completely open glass, and I'm just wondering about.
They have to, the hearing's closed.
Okay.
And they have to comply with the lighting requirements in our bylaws.
Okay. Thank you for.
You can talk sweetly to them and say, hey.
Yeah, could you
when
please
you're
put some
doing
kind of
this-
full shielded cutoff?
I think, isn't
They
that
have to meet
bylaws?
your-
They have
they
to
have
be
a
shielded.
You have a compliance bylaw on
Yeah.
the street lighting. Yeah, we don't
Okay.
really have a choice.
Yeah.
All right, I guess. It seems bright. Thank you. Will it be connected to the towns too? If it's a accepted way, it must be.
Must be.
So then they can be dimmed at night. That's good.
They can put in LED lights.
Okay, is there a motion to find the requested amendment to the previously approved definitive subdivision and OSRD special permit decision for 0 and 37 Carlisle Road, also known as Diane Lane, as a minor amendment, subject to the applicant providing proof of recording the proposed utility easement 1 over parcel A and utility easement 2 over parcel B to the Land Use Management Department prior to holding a pre-construction meeting?
Moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye.
Thanks, guys.
Wait,
we're
we're
not done.
not going to also vote to execute the covenant and sign the plan? Endorse the plan?
Sure.
That would be great.
I move that we endorse the plan and sign the covenant for 037 Carlisle Road, also known as Diane Lane,
As amended, with amendments. from
Made this
tonight.
evening? Yeah.
as amended this evening.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, Dan?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Maybe it was the utility one
It
that
was,
had the amendment.
actually, but,
Anything
That's why he
else,
looked
Jeff?
confused.
well, if it wasn't amended, then it doesn't matter.
All right.
Joe has, before you folks leave, you're kind enough to
Sign things,
sign
sure.
plans and.
Wait a minute, we have two more things here.
We have
Oh,
things,
yeah.
we got things to do.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. All right, we're on to general business, item C.
So this is just a quick update. We said when we got some additional information, we'd share it with you relative to Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020.
Yes.
There is some guidance. It's probably as straightforward and simple guidance as is out there.
Yep.
But one of the things I did want to share with you folks, there was some question before. Westford is considered, for purposes of some of the requirements, as an MBTA community. We fall under the other communities served category, but makes us an MBTA community. And one of the biggest things about that is it says that, the state says you shall have a zoning district that allows for multifamily development by right. So even though we have some opportunities in our zoning bylaw to have multifamily development in limited cases, they're with benefit of special permit, which is not by right. And so it's unclear when the state is going to really start looking at this and enforcing. But they say that if you do not comply with this, then you will be ineligible for certain types of grants, one of which is MassWorks grants, the other is like Housing Choice, I believe. So Joe is highlighting all the good stuff. So that could be a big deal down the road. So we're just giving you a heads up. We did get clarification. We are gonna bring some food for thought for your consideration and to maybe start thinking about some possibilities down the road. We can't just necessarily take a single lot, because that might be considered spot zoning, would not be large enough to satisfy the requirements. So we have to think maybe a little bit bigger.
Like a district or something.
A district, an overlay district, something like that. It doesn't, we're not saying it has to be 100 acres, but maybe it's 10 acres, 12, we gotta,
Minimum 15.
yeah, but it has to also work for Westford. So it's not just about completely just checking those boxes, but it's what satisfies the minimums and makes logical sense for our town here. So you can look at, they mentioned eligible locations, so it might make sense if there's areas that have better infrastructure that can accommodate, water, traffic, that sort of thing. There might be other areas that might not be as obvious that it might make sense to perhaps encourage development or encourage superior developments to what might be there if there's some underutilized properties, or there's already some properties that the town is exploring, for some housing projects. Maybe we can pair it up with something that's already on the radar and check those boxes. So we're not gonna, we can give you some things to think about, but we're gonna be leaning on this board to provide your insight and some guidance. And I'm sure there'll be opportunities for public forums, maybe even some charrettes to see how we can get there and move closer to checking that off. So we'll be bringing it back at a future.
Perhaps an opportunity to start another working group.
Perhaps.
It sounds as though we're going to have to modify our bylaws for language about some stuff like voting requirements and such.
You don't necessarily have to modify your bylaw to do that. So I believe the guidance says if there is a zoning bylaw amendment, they ask that the planning board consult with town council and to provide an opinion as to what voting threshold is required for any given zoning bylaw amendment. Okay?
So, but voting requirements that are existing ones would remain, like our 2/3 for special permits, even if it...
So that you wouldn't necessarily need to amend your zoning bylaw if the state says this is the requirement, and say certain types of projects, even though they might be special permit, it might only require a simple majority. You don't need to necessarily amend your zoning bylaw to do that.
But like the 2/3 vote and stuff.
Are we talking for town meeting, or are we talking for granting
I'm just...
special permits, say, for supermajority?
I'm confusing. I'm mixing the two, and I shouldn't. Never mind. I did get confused in this because of some of their amendments that are allowed by right are also by special permits, so that was confusing. So when we get around to this, that more clarification would be...
Sure. So there are
created.
some opportunities to allow for simple zoning bylaw changes by simple majority that could allow for special permits for certain types of development that they want to promote or encourage. However, those types of developments might not check, it wouldn't check the by right box.
I'm just saying, the way this information is, the language is the same, so it's confusing.
That's the simple version.
Okay, and then there was something else.
We'll bring council with us to
Oh,
that
yeah.
meeting.
I have a question. While we're talking about potentially overlay districts and special kinds of zoning, did we ever take action on the working group that I think Dennis Galvin was heading regarding mixed use areas where you have, you can have residences that are above or adjacent to, a retail location or some sort of business district? Did we ever, we never applied like an overlay district for those kinds of uses, did we?
No.
I'm just sort of throwing it out there. If we're going to start talking and looking at, if we're going to go about the effort of looking at this, should we maybe use that as an opportunity to also consider that feedback from some time ago and consider that kind of an overlay district as well?
I think that's a great idea, and hold that thought. We have some things to share with you in the future. We just got to get a few more details worked out. Maybe.
Okay, fair enough.
But everything will be vetted by this board.
And if we're doing overlay work, let's do the overlay work, I guess is what I'm saying.
Hold that thought.
All right.
Okay.
And can we be stricter than what they say in here?
For those watching at home, that's the big market tease from our Director of Land Use Management. Stay tuned. Tune in next time. All right. Okay.
Why are ratings so low? I don't know.
Okay.
Wait till November 1st.
Anything else, Joe or Jeff, on general business item C? No? All right. So then, general business item D is 2022 meeting dates and deadlines.
I have my perennial comment that the way this is, half of the months of the year, we only have one meeting, which kind of goes against what's in our planning board
Rules and
rules
regulations.
of conduct. So I propose that we add one in June, June 20th, like we did last year. And I think I'm okay with January and February, because it seems to me some years we always have snow cancellations, so. And we did it last year, where we did a special meeting just for things that were already in the works.
I guess that's kind of my question is, I mean, I think we've been accommodating in the past when, if stuff is building up or if there's just some quick items, I think we've had ad hoc meetings when needed to make sure that we're providing services to applicants. So I'm not opposed to, adding one in June if that's, what the favor of the board is, but I also think,
And I think we should seriously change our rules of conduct thing, because it says we only have one meeting in June, July, and August. But then September, we're always going to miss the first meeting, so why not change it from June to August and make it July to September?
Because then we have more meetings.
The one thing with the June 20th meeting is it's likely that Juneteenth will be observed on that day. Because it falls on a Sunday, so it'll probably get observed on that Monday. So if you were looking to add another meeting that month, it might be on a different day other than Monday.
That's a good reason not to observe Juneteenth.
Not going there.
She said it.
Wow.
Wow. And is there any thought of maybe 7 o'clock starting instead of 7:30, so we get out a little earlier? I mean, I don't want to throw a wrench into everything here, but.
Second?
Yeah, 7 o'clock wouldn't be bad.
Does that make it hard for staff?
Exactly.
No.
Board of Appeals starts at 7, so it'd be the same across both boards.
Wait, what starts at 7?
The Board of Appeals.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why
I would definitely rather get out a little earlier.
I would definitely favor starting a half an hour earlier.
Now that I'm working from home a lot, I don't mind. It was when I was working from work that it was hard for me to get here at 7.
Do we want to maybe think about doing this for the meeting that, so far in the future, that we haven't noticed yet, that we can start before the new year?
We could take a look at our application dates and deadlines, and if we amend it quickly, we can adjust it as soon as it wouldn't change, from when someone applies.
Yep.
Happy to do that.
Well, this stuff here doesn't affect the start of our meeting times, except for the next one. I mean, if you guys want to, after,
The second November meeting, start at 7.
can we do that?
The planning board, it's your own meeting.
It's the 2nd November is what? That's the week of Thanksgiving? That's the Monday of the Thanksgiving week? Is
Yeah.
that right?
Well, the first, no, it's the 15th. It's the week
Oh,
15th,
okay.
so it'll be a week before.
That's fine.
Yeah, I would say when the first meeting we can do it, that it's not going to affect something that's already.
So I move effective November 15th, the planning board meeting shall start at 7 PM as opposed to 7:30.
Second?
Motion. Motion in 2 seconds. All those in favor? Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye.
Now that means you got to adjourn half an hour earlier than you would have. right?
Our rules and regs say our meeting should only last 3 hours, so.
2 hours?
Second?
Only?
Three.
Maybe we need to
Second.
amend that section too.
Second.
right?
Yeah, I would, and Kate, to your point about June, I think, I think if we're on, we can add a meeting. a month or two before then. To add one now, just to add a meeting in June, I don't know if that makes sense,
I
but.
just have an issue because we meet twice a month, except for the 3 summer months. And every other month it has a holiday on our meeting day, which is 3 other months. So it's
Yeah, but
it's just hypocritical to say we meet twice a month and we.
So just,
but I think we don't.
I know it's not our fault.
It's
but
not our
all
fault.
the-
Yeah, I mean, like the third Monday is like holidays, and then I feel like half the time, at least in my time on the board, I feel like half the time when we try to adjust it, then all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't because we don't have this room because this other board has this room, and we go around and
Yeah.
around the washer of like trying to pick another date that we can use this room, and you can't because it's booked all the time. I don't.
It's just a
That's why-
Sisyphus thing or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, that's why I really do favor the idea that in the months, not the summer months, but the other months where we are prohibited from meeting twice a month. So your Januaries, your Februaries, your what is it, September?
September.
In September, we agree that like, look, we're open to having a second meeting, but that could be kind of an ad hoc meeting based on what is in the queue at that time. And sometimes I know we've done meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning and we do them virtually. We've done 8 o'clock in the morning and we just meet in the small, conference room to work through a couple of items that are queued up where that you have an applicant that's very close to the end of the process and we don't want to keep them waiting a full month. So I think we've been relatively accommodating. I think we should
very
just keep-
accommodating.
I just think we should keep that going because I think it satisfies the need, which is,
I agree.
providing the applicant with, who's right there, not delaying them 4 weeks. I think if we do that, I think we're still, providing a good service to the town. I don't know. You don't agree?
Well, no, I just bring it up all the time.
You could amend your rules of procedure to say meet once to twice per month, so it's not as inconsistent. Or once per month, okay.
And twice is the value?
You wish.
But wait,
Yeah.
more. So, so I think we've decided to start meeting at 7, is effective the 15th of November,
And we're
and
keeping this calendar as is because of Juneteenth.
yes, and the other conflicts in January and February,
Yeah.
right?
And September.
And September, yes. All right. We don't need a motion for that. We're good to go, yeah?
We're good.
All right, excellent. We're on to reviewing draft minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 20th of 2021?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes of September 20th?
No. There was the thing about reviewing my vote on Diane Lane, and I did review it. And what it was is, I did vote in favor of the special permit, but I think somebody else said aye at the same time. And then the note taker heard me telling you didn't ask for abstentions, and she thought that was
Oh.
me saying I abstain.
Ah.
So I did vote for it.
Okay.
One really minor thing, if you don't mind, on line 189, 190. I think I added that Jerry DeBello is a member of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee and could be considered their rep to the working group. I don't think I was mandating it,
Yeah.
because they may want to appoint somebody else. Maybe he doesn't want to have that role as a member of, he just wants to be a kind of ad hoc person, so I would just say. I
Could be
put
instead of would be.
Yeah.
Could be
And
considered.
they did appoint somebody else, so, yeah.
Right.
So
Good
change
catch.
would to could on
Yeah.
line 190?
That's good.
Bob, any proposed adjustments to the meeting minutes from
Nope.
September 20th? No? Kate?
Nope, looks good.
Looked
Mike?
good to me.
All set?
All right, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Oh, and then we have correspondence reports and updates, and I don't see anything in the packet. Joe, anything in correspondence reports and updates? Great. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting of the planning board?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye.